subscribe, and share.
Hello everybody, my name is Craig Bennett and I'm the founder and owner of TechViewSnuff, and today I am going to show you how to do basic network troubleshooting for a home network. I was going to include how to do also a business network into this, but that's an entirely different beast and I don't think a lot of my viewers will get something out of that. However, if you do think you will get something out of that, then go ahead and leave a comment below or email me and I'll make an entire video on that. Now, one thing I want to note before we get started into this is not going to cover all the methods on troubleshooting. With networking and pretty much anything with computers, there's thousands of things that can cause problems, and there's no way I can cover as many things as required. But I'll go for the most common things you'll see, so most likely will solve your problems. And this video was actually brought by with this question in mind. Now, with this particular person, it sounds like they got a software issue, which I'll approach later on in the video. But anyways, let's jump into a quick personal advertisement, and then let's go into the actual thing.
Thanks for sticking around during the ads. Please feel free to click on the icons shown to be taken to areas where you can help us. All links will be below for mobile and other users.
Welcome back. Now, real quick, I want to mention everything I'll show you is in Windows 8.1. There is some similarities between Windows 8, well, Windows in general, and OS X and Linux. So I'm going to go back and forth with telling you some of the similarities. But for the most part, you're going to have to experience that on your own, because especially for Linux, it's very difficult to say where the settings are, but for the most part, all these settings should be somewhere in there, or just about all of them. With OS X, pretty much all of them are going to be within there. So as far as things goes, one of the more common problems people face with internet connections is not connecting to the Wi-Fi source, simply just not connecting to it. To connect to a Wi-Fi source is pretty simple. If you're on Windows 8, specifically Windows 8.1, you can go down here and you see some type of icon, looks like a computer or something like that, that's not connected. And just click on it and a tab should open up showing all the stuff. You can click on that on Windows 7, I believe, and it'll bring up its own stuff. Now, if you don't have that, then don't worry. But either case, if you have it or don't, and if you have other issues, then go ahead and follow this. Go ahead and right click on the area and go to network and sharing. But again, if you don't have that icon and you still don't know how to connect, go to the start, go to control panel. You might have to go to the start over here and just search for control panel. Go to network and network and sharing. Now, if you are having other problems, wait here. If you're having problems not knowing how to connect to other devices like Wi-Fi routers, go to change adapter settings, right click on the adapter that you want to connect to your Wi-Fi or other device, and select the connect/disconnect, and it'll bring up the tab if you're on Windows 8, and it will bring up whatever it is for every other operating system version. Now, with OS X, these settings are pretty much within the settings itself, so it's somewhere within there. But for the most part, if you're having other problems, say for example you got your stuff connected to the Wi-Fi source, but it's having other problems, what you need to do is simply click the Wi-Fi source or the adapter that has the problem, and then select diagnose. On OS X, on the top on the networking tab, it will actually have diagnose, and you click that and pretty much the same thing will happen there. 90%, give or take, of your problems will be solved with diagnose. It's hands down one of the more useful tools when trying to troubleshoot home networks. Most of the time, it will even fix a problem for you. It will say, do you want me to fix this? And you're like, all right. Now, you might have to do it once in a while, and if that happens, go ahead and leave a comment below. Tell me what it says the problem is, and I'll try to help you out. So I'm guiding you on how to fix it where it doesn't happen, or it'll happen less often. One of the bigger ones I find is IP conflicts and stuff like that, which is pretty easy to fix. Now, let's say that didn't fix it, and you need to escalate it to the next step. So on this is where we're going to divert apart from OS X and Linux, and we're just going to stick with Windows, because this is pretty much where my experience goes into. So go to Properties, and then go down to, and these settings are on Linux and OS X. So I'm not trying to, say these aren't. These are on those operating systems, but I won't be able to tell you exactly where they are. But go to Properties, go to the, if you're on an IPv4 network, then select IPv4. If you're on IPv6, then go to IPv6, but double click on them. If you don't know, assume that you're on IPv4 at this time, and make sure the thing says obtain automatically for both the IP and the DNS, and also the alternative if you have that. Now, once it says that, press OK and do another dynos. That might fix it right there. And if it does, then great. If it doesn't, go back to the IPv4 or IPv6 depending on your setup. Go to the use the following, and as you notice, both of these go to use the following. In the IP address, what you want to do is put in the internal IP address to your router, your wireless router, into the default gateway. So for me, mine is 192.168.1.1. Yours is probably that, or it's probably 0.1. I've seen that also, but most likely it's 1.1. So if you don't know it, it's not going to hurt. It's going to take like a 2-second thing to see if that works or not. But basically from here, you need to go to IP address, and this is going to be your IP address to your computer. So from here, what you need to do is go into the first 3 digits, so 192.168.1. That needs to be exactly the same. And for the last one, pick anything above 2 or whatever. This is +1, so if you add 1, you can go for it, or anything between there and I think it's 255. Now, as far as that goes, one thing I want to mention, you might have collisions that happen, or what's known as collisions, and I'm not going to get into that because it's a little bit complicated, but the one thing to note is this is just for test purposes to make sure that works. But what you need to do is select whatever number. I'll just select a triple digit for the for this one, to like 100 or something like that. What I found, especially from networks, is your lower end between, obviously the router is a 1, so between 2 and 30 is pretty much going to be guaranteed being used at some point. Most people don't have much more devices than that, or even close to that, and most routers don't even support that many. Like, for example, many people don't know this, but when you're on a what's called a wireless band, then you have a limited amount of devices that can be on that band. It will still keep adding it, but the lag is going to be so much that communication's impossible. I'm not going to get into that in this particular video because it's not necessary, but it's just safe to say that you're probably not going to have too many devices on your thing, and having a triple digit for that last little bit, unless if you already preset it in the past, you're pretty much going to be alright with that. And just press tab and your subnet mask should already put itself in. If the subnet mask doesn't, if it's not the same as what is on the router, then change it. If you don't know it, assume that it's the default subnet mask, because most likely it is. The DNS, you can do a just leave it as is, or you can do it 8888. And basically what a DNS is, it's the phone book for the internet. So basically, instead of you have to put in these IP addresses on the internet side of thing, you can just put in like google.com or techfusionsup.com or something like that, and the whatever .com is associated with some IP address, and basically your computer will go out to that, look up the stuff, and knows where to send the information to and from. And this is Google's DNS, so it probably is going to be up most of the time. Not 100% of the time. There's probably going to be 15 minutes out through a year. So we're talking about it's pretty much going to be up when they're going to use it. But again, you can have it empty if need be. In fact, I'm just going to press cancel on this. But from here, you need to press validate if need be. And then just press OK. I'm going to press cancel because I got it working, and I don't want to mess up anything I got going on in the background. So from here, make sure that the stuff is checked. So if IPv4, IPv6, it doesn't hurt having both checked if need be, and press OK. And test it out again. If it doesn't work still, and you did another dynos, then what you need to do is we need to troubleshoot where the problem is happening. Is it happening like on the internet provider side? Is it happening on whatever side? So let's figure that one out. So what you want to do is open up CMD. Just go into the any search, either up here or on there. Type in CMD, and this is command prompt. It does not have to be administrator, right? And then do a ns look up google.com, and if you get something like that, it might not be exact. If you get something like that, then you're okay. And by the way, this is one way to find the IP addresses to whatever websites, machines. So if you get this, you know you're connected to a DNS. In other words, it won't. In fact, I got a video on what it looks like when it's not, because I've actually had a problem recently where my internet provider messed up. So let's say that works. Your internet is, or your signal is going out to the internet. You're able to communicate with the DNS, fine, and you're able to get results back, which is great. Go to your browser and put in, like say for example, where the NS lookup on Google. Well, go to google.com. If it's working, great, we're good. If it's not working, and you're still getting this, then there's a few things that can happen. You got a software problem, or your internet provider is messing up. Your router is eliminated from the equation from that point on. However, your software problem is probably some type of firewall issue. I'm going to talk a little bit more about firewalls in a bit, because that's also one of the problems that come up once in a while. But as far as internet provider issue, you might want to test out a few other things and then call up your internet provider and say, hey, this and this is going on, and I'm not able to get to certain sites. And they'll probably fix it for you, or they'll tell you, oh yeah, we nicked the line and we need to fix it. So let's say that this didn't work for whatever reason. So ping your default gateway, your router. So with me, again, it's 192.168.1.1. Keep in mind this is an internal IP address. And if you're getting all replies like I am, then great. And let's go to, I don't think that one's in use. If you're getting something like this and it's a long time, just do a Control-C and it will kill it, and you can move on to the next thing, because in other words, you're going to have to wait for the command to get done, and it's just a quick way of killing the command. So let's just say that you got something like this. In fact, it says what is my internal, what is this computer's IP address, which is the 192.168.1.13, and there you go. Now, as far as that goes, so one thing that you might notice is the time. It's a lot. Let's see if I can pull up. You can see that the time is a massive difference between the it and mine. Don't worry about that. If you're getting feedback within like a couple milliseconds, then great. So let's say that you try to ping your default gateway, your router, and you're not able to get through. What's your next step? Go check your software, check your firewalls. Again, I'll get into this in a bit. But let's say that you're able to go and ping your router. Well, ping another device on the network. So I'm pretty sure this one's taken. I don't know for 100% fact. Yep, it's taken by something. I don't know what it's taken by. Something. And if you're able to ping it, then great. So that means your router's eliminated from the equation. And you probably got a problem with either your firewall or the internet. In this equation, basically, your router works, your pinging the router works, but pinging outside of your network doesn't work. You're pinging another device on the network works. It's probably your router's out of the equation there. Now you know the problem's either your computer or the internet. And so that's great. Now let's say that the router is still an equation. You ping the router it's not sending any signal back. It's you're having problems there. What do? Check the settings on the router first. And that's a huge thing. You might have some firewall settings on your router. What you need to do is just go to a browser, not Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, and just type in the 192.168.1.1 if that's your router. If it's not, then put in whatever yours is. and log in and check your settings. Each router is different, so I'm not going to show you what mine is. I do have a Netgear, but that's one thing to keep in mind. And depending on how old your stuff is, even though mine's Netgear, yours might be a Netgear. It's a very popular company. It's a very good router service too. The one thing to keep in mind is that I have Netgear boxes that are 2003 that are still good, and basically they got a different interface altogether than what my current one has. So even if you're on the same brand, your stuff might be in different locations and stuff. And on top of that, the settings might not be the same. So unfortunately, I can't show you how to set up your router if it is the problem. But basically, go into security settings into your router and check that out. And if it's all good there, if there's no blockage, if you're not blocking a particular MAC or IP address, or if you don't have time slots on your router, as far as some people, they put time slots for, mostly it's parents putting time slots for their kids, so the kids don't go on the internet at night or whatever, so they get sleep or whatever it may be. Check that, and that might be the problem also. But let's say that that's not the problem, so you pretty much eliminated the router itself. You still can't communicate a router, which chances are it's your firewall, or it's a program acting as a firewall. So let's close this out. So you can keep yours up, and if you want, in fact, I'll stress you keep your command prompt open. But basically what you need to do is go to your firewall. So let's, I don't have my control panel up. So go back into your control panel, and basically what we're looking for is the security. So system and security, firewall, and turn on or off firewall settings. A lot of people might be screaming at their computers right now, and these people are not going to be advanced users. These people are going to be, let's just call them noobs. That's what they are, and they're going to hate this, but this is what the real world and the adults do. You turn off your firewall, and yes, it's stupid to do this long term, but short term, unless if you're like at an embassy or something like that, turn off your fire, or if you're in that environment, just put your stuff in a test lab so you don't have any outside influence. But pretty much, if you're in a home environment, you don't really have to worry too much about people trying to get in your system all the time. And since you can't even connect to your router, it's not really a problem. What you need to do is turn off your firewalls, press OK, and try again. If it still doesn't work, check your other programs. So for example, I have Windows Firewall. I also have Avast. If Windows Firewall says yes, it's good to go, like send information through port 80, and then Avast says no, don't send information through port 80, because one or the other or both says don't, it won't go through at all. If both, like if all your stuff that controls your firewall, if they all say okay to it, then it will go through. So that's very, very important notes when you're dealing with firewalls, because if a lot of people assume this is the only firewall on your computer, that's not the case a lot of the time, especially when you download external things like Avast, Northern, and some others. So it's very, very, very important to note that what is your firewalls that you're currently running and not. And that will tell you what you need to change. Now, let's say that you don't want to turn off your firewall for whatever reason. You're in a I know this is supposed to be for home use, but say you're an embassy, or let's say that you're a political official or whatever, then all you need to do is go to the advanced settings, and we're going to try to figure out which port is causing the problem. If it's a port, again, keep in mind you got to do this with each and every program that controls your firewall, and that's why I say just turn off the firewall. Turn off the firewall across the board, and you know if it's your firewall or not, because right now doing this method, it's going to take a long time, and you might actually cause more problems than not, especially if you forget. But let's say that you're still wanting to do this on each program. Go to your inbound and outbound rules and select it, and just right click and press disable or enable, and you can also go to properties and you can tell it to block or not. Other programs, it's a little bit different, so that's one thing to keep in mind, but for the most part it's the same thing. Blocking, unblocking ports, blocking, unblocking programs from communicating in certain ways. So let's say that there's still a problem. It happens. This is not likely, but it does happen. It could be an adapter issue. Let's close this out real quick. It could be a adapter issue, so a physical problem. So try getting a cheap, I think $5-10 USB wireless adapter, and test that. See if that works, because it could easily be your adapter. Your actual adapter could be going bad. The antenna on it could be broke. There's things like that happens. In fact, on one of mine, I don't even have antennas on it because the plastic antenna fell off, and fortunately the metal is still there, so that's acting as antenna, but the plastic stuff that was supposed to boost the signal, it's not on there anymore. So that type of stuff does happen, but one thing to keep in mind is this depends on how well you take care of your stuff, what is the condition that you got it in, because if you buy it used, it's not a big problem. And the other thing is do you actually really need that? Let's say that it's not a hardware failure, you tested your firewalls, you done everything else. The only thing I could think of for Windows, for OS X, you need to talk to Apple about it. But Linux, that's going to be a little bit more difficult depending on what you're using specifically. But for Windows, check your registry key. If you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know what a registry key is, don't do that. But if you do know what you're doing, and by the way, if you do break your computer at any point of this, then it's not on my head, because it's purely a informational video, and I physically don't have access to your computer. But check your registry key, and that can also be a problem, something in there. But that's something that you don't want to mess with unless you know what you're doing, and specifically if you know what part to look into, because you can go pages after pages and still not find what you're looking for. And in fact, Microsoft even has an entire teams, not single people, but entire teams of people. Their job is solely to do that, to look through the registry and find the one that's needed, so other teams can get what they want. So they spend less time finding the registry keys that they're looking for. Yeah, so aside from that, there's not much else I can tell you to do. It's pretty much going beyond what I originally wanted to put out. It's a little bit more advanced. But yeah, from there's not much else I can tell you what to do. because one thing you got to keep in mind is where's your internet going through, specifically where's your network going through. You got a computer which has software, you got the network card, so that's a potential failure point. You got your router, that's a potential failure point. You got your modem, which is a potential failure point. You got your internet provider, that's a huge potential failure point. And that's pretty much about it. But anyways, as far as things goes, this has been Craig Bennett, founder and owner of TechViews and Help, and hopefully this helped you out. And believe it or not, most of working in IT is this, troubleshooting. It's a major part in networking, major part in coding, major part in everything else. It's knowing how to troubleshoot issues. But hopefully this helped you out. If it hasn't, if you're still having problems, go ahead and leave a comment below. I'll try to help as best as I can, but beyond that, it's going to be very iffy if anyone can help you. Obviously, if someone is sitting right in front of your computer, they can probably get to the source very quickly. But if someone's not, then it's going to be a lot more difficult. And one thing to keep in mind is, yes, using services, computer repair services, that might be the next option, because having someone sit there and look at the computer, being able to either look at it and tell you what's going on, or being able to change it right there and then, is the way to go. Even if it's like a family friend or something like that that deals with computers, that's also a option, obviously. But to be honest, that's pretty much the only thing you can do. But again, you know what to do if you like this. If you don't like it, go ahead and leave a dislike and tell me why, so I can fix it in other videos. But again, this has been Craig Bennett, founder and owner of TechViews and Help. Please like, please subscribe, and please share. And please feel free to check out my links. And I hope you have a great day.